So, hello, Nigel.
Hello, Egle. How are you?
Very well. Enjoying the weather, beautiful autumn. Autumn in Lithuania,
Yes,
just such at the background.
it must be very,
Looks like
very nice indeed.
forest. Yes.
Egle, do you mind if I introduce myself and then perhaps you can introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah.
My name is Dr. Nigel MacLennan. I'm President-elect of the British Psychological Society, and I've been a psychologist for something in the region of 35 years and have published a large number of books in various fields of psychology.
Very proper introduction. Nigel, I'm going to be sharing this video as well with many people. And before I will introduce myself, there's something that I will say, that I always believe there's no coincidences. And because we met, there was no way coincidence. So we can share how we met, or we don't share how we met, but nevertheless, I am very pleased to having such a good friend, clever and wise friends such you. So this interview is very exciting news for many of my audience as well. And my audience, and obviously it's related with what I do. And so I am physiotherapist, been finishing my school many years ago. And at this moment, what I do is to do with learning how to bring people into the balance of the mind, body, and spiritually. And I do that through many methodologies, which is, of course, physiotherapy through the body, yoga as a mindfulness, meditation, consultations, coaching, all many ways. And I try to stick to as much natural way as possible, so every person could relate to it as easy as it could be. So I've been doing this for over 15 years.
Excellent.
So that is my introduction.
Thanks, Egle. And today we've agreed that we're going to explore pain and suffering, internal and external. Would you like to kick off on that subject?
The subject of suffering really comes into my heart because I'm more a heart-based person, seeing around people. And you know, when it comes down to the suffering, there is always pain. And if people come to me and they see me and ask for the help, there's always some kind of pain. So the pain is obviously is in the body. But as we progress later on, it always comes to the inside, which is psychology, and where really all started. So I think elaborating on that topic is quite profound from your experience as a psychologist and from my experience as actually hands-on body therapy and energy work. So yeah, what do you think, how we progress with this topic from your side? What are the methods? I would say maybe the question comes in straight away. How do you see and why people come to you when they have some kind of pain? What do you think? What is your approach on that one? It's kind of exploring ways to elaborate on the topic so we could grasp on something.
And I'm going to try and keep this really brief because that's a huge question you've just asked me. One of the things that I'd like to start with clients fairly early on, not immediately, but fairly early on, is to help them to the point where they realize that the facts of the situation are real, but the way they interpret the situation is a choice. In other words, to put it into a pain context, the physical pain is real, but whether we see that as suffering or something else is a choice. And it takes people a while to get that, because most people think that the pain automatically means suffering. But of course, it doesn't. That there are people who are and have been in chronic pain for many, many years. And they are remarkably cheerful, upbeat people. And these are the people who've made the choice. The pain is real, but suffering is a choice. And I choose not to suffer. I choose to find ways of dealing with the physical pain that are constructive and empowering. How does your experience relate to that?
You know, I'm thinking straight away about the way. So let's say a person comes and they said, look, you know, this is something wrong. I'm feeling pain in the body. So for me, I straight away listen. And for me, raise this question, why is there pain? Where did it come from? And are the person aware of the actually where it comes from? Are they aware about the body? How they aware about the body? And also how they are aware about where it comes from? Is the pain has a story? So I'm always tracking down what is the story of your pain, because clearly, you know, to survive in the body, it needs constant charge, and the mind becomes as a tool charging that story. So, and also one of the questions also are raised, do you want to let go of that pain? Do you want to let go of that story? So it's almost make them conscious and aware about, is that pain really comes from them actually just, you know, very surface, very fresh kind of thing. But usually people who come to see me, they are with severe depth story pain. And this is where I committed basically on my path to lead people to much more depth ways to rediscover themselves, to enable to heal themselves, enable and see how the mind is related with the body and the energy that they constantly are charging into. So that is my approach. Now, for you, I have a question straight away. And I think this is that's why we're talking, finding ways to connect to, right? Mind, body, spirit. And if there would be a formula, for people, say they come and they have a pain, no matter what, in the body or in the soul, psychological, they suffer, right? They suffer, really. It's not like just the pain, they're really constantly suffering. What do you think? And from your experience, is there a formula could be applied to anyone who's willing to open up and willing to do the work?
Formula perhaps suggests that we're all the same, and as we both know, that we're all very, very different. Each of us is unique. However, is there a template? I'd probably be more comfortable answering the question if it was rephrased as, is there a template? Yeah, a template, I think so. If we can get individuals to the point where they realize, and in the language you're using, the story that they're telling themselves about the pain, and in the language I'm using to say the same thing, the choices that they've made about interpreting their pain, if we can get them to realize that they've either made choices or they're telling themselves a story about their pain, then they can see that it's much more in their control than they previously thought. Particularly if the story is or choice is one of an external locus of control. In other words, they've created a story around the pain that puts the pain outside of themselves, rather than choosing to interpret the pain in a particular way. So for me, getting the individual to the point where they realize their own levels of self-responsibility for the suffering, not for the pain. The pain is usually real. You know, the facts associated with the pain are usually real, but the choice is usually around whether that turns into suffering or whether or not they deal with it and cope with it in an empowered and constructive way. So in summary, I think we're saying pretty much the same thing. We're just choosing different language to express it.
Right. Love it.
What steps do you think are necessary to get people to, first of all, become aware of their story and then change their story about their pain?
I always refer into the are they happy? And the word is happy. It's not just here. Do they feel free, good in their body? is their body feel fluid and healthy and high energy. They wake up in the morning, they motivated to do something today, you know, they just meeting day as it is. Are they happy? And I usually ask them, tell me how happy you are from 1% to 100. 100% is really happy, all good in your life, and then 1% is really shitty, like you just don't want to live.
I presume that's a technical term.
What is the technical term?
I think it was shitty.
Okay, so that is a technical. It's
Okay,
very
yeah.
close to the you know, simplicity. I grow up in the countryside. It doesn't mean that I'm cannot perform and speak language as you know, like properly, but sometimes strong definition on certain things makes people to really relate more, because sometimes too official they become distant, and breaking the distance to straight away getting and feeling. That's how I've learned to use certain language. So they go, oh, okay, I got it. That is, you know, I'm really shitty now. I don't know what to do. So anyway, so yeah, are you happy? And if you're not happy, and if you're not happy, which areas do you think you could improve? Which areas you think you have a struggle or unfulfilled? And this is how we explore where we're going, right? So despite of this suffering they are in, usually I just see where they at. And also the other question asking when they define, okay, in this area, I think I would love to have more happiness. Then I would say, how do you see, what do you think, who created this? So that is a straightaway question leading them into do they see that they are creators, or do they see, can they take certain responsibility what they created? And that makes them think, okay, hold on a second now, right? So I'm talking about this happy, you know, which area unhappy and how far you see you've created it. It's basically, if we think about, you know, the wheel and the mouse rolling. You know, yesterday I was thinking the wheel and the mouse, right? The mouse rolling, and then she's going and going, and she's going nowhere, going circles. And usually people are like that. Even they're suffering, they're going circles. They don't see how to escape the circle. And sometimes they don't know how to stop, because basically they don't know how to stop. They fear to stop, because unknown is more fearful and more fear than known, right? So usually that's how they say suffering, we can become addicted and get used to it, rather than perform something new, completely new, and sometimes it's equals to the death. So anyways, I usually say, you know, in rather to stop running, you gotta stop the wheel. You just stop running and sit still and give that chance to yourself, just be uncomfortable in that space. And then slowly it will unfold. But obviously that's why people looking for help. They don't know how to do it by themselves. They're not strong enough, they don't have skills, and they just don't trust themselves that they can do it. So I guess me and you, we kind of like a teachers, like guides or coaches or psychologists or doctor, you know, who actually give me a hand, and let's stick together. Let's stay here together, and let's breathe and see, what do you see now? So yeah, I think long chat. So what do you see? How do you see that on the same topic?
It's interesting that we're saying very similar things. Let me just illustrate that a little bit further. You say that people are on a treadmill, on a rotating wheel. And the language I use to describe exactly what you've just illustrated is that people get themselves into a habit. They're going around in a loop, as you describe, and they become unaware of the habits that they're engaged in that actually perpetuate their own suffering, and those habits are completely invisible to them, to the point that it's no longer a choice as to whether or not they're engaged in that habit, because the habit has control of them. You know, habits can become empowering or disempowering, constructive or destructive. And when a habit has taken control of an individual, it's disempowering and destructive. But then they generally, when I say they, I mean, we all do this to ourselves. It's not just other people, you know, you and I do this to ourselves too. But,
I'm doing this to myself as well. Full on.
we have habits that get control of us. And when people are in a pain loop, a pain habit, they're telling themselves the same story over and over again about their pain, about their suffering, and maybe even going into some of the destructive why me loops that we often hear people go through. And they're just unaware that they're doing it to themselves. And I find that simply the act of getting people to become aware of that gets them to the point where they want to change it. So I can't change it, but once they become aware of it, they can change it. But of course,
and they can choose as well, right?
Say again, sorry?
They can also choose change it or not.
Yes, absolutely. They can choose whether or not they change it. And for some clients, as soon as they see the habit, they realize what they've done to themselves. For other clients, they see the habit and they'll try and justify it. Well, the reason I'm doing this is, and then they'll go into another loop which perpetuates the very habit that's being destructive. And then, of course, you have to get them to see that they're doing that first before they can address the habit which is actually causing the problem. So there can be many layers to this circular pattern that you describe going through. Once you've got them to the point, or once you've got clients to the point where they can see that they're on this treadmill, what do you use to get them to change their behavior or to change their thinking?
Okay, good. I love this. So in my experience, obviously, the way I've learned to actually dedicate people responsibility to take responsibility what is happening in their life. It's pretty much developing the habit of awareness. It's the number one. Sometimes for them, it's just so difficult to change something because it's so ingrained in them. Just to be aware of it and make a choice not to give energy to that action or that thought or that story, it's already a lot. So I always encourage them, okay, just be aware of it. And if you're going to behave that way, you know already the result. It's going to be same road, same habit, same results. So, but just be aware of it. Stop next to it. Don't do anything with it. Just watch it. Just watch it. And I would define that like a bubble. I would say, I would use a little bit NLP technique for them to like visualize that, right? As soon they, you know, obviously it comes as an emotion, it pulls them into that, you know, behavior, and they're just about to behave. I would say, just watch that as a TV. Just look at this as a picture. Just take yourself out of that picture and you just observe it and you see yourself in the picture, just behaving the same way. Just watch TV. Just watch it and then switch off. Switch on is the picture is there. So usually sometimes I just constantly be aware of it. And when they become aware of it, is some kind of emotional connections start to be further and further. It doesn't pull them away into that habit pattern or behavioral pattern, right? Then they become empowered. Then they feel, okay, I have more power now. Okay, good. So what would be the other TV? What would be the other picture? The other picture of that instead of that would be, what would be behavior? You can't create anything. And it's to do about encouraging them to trust themselves so they can create with no fear. Because sometimes people say, oh, you know, I'm afraid it's going to be the same thing. No, because you will create with different energy. Your picture is bright, your picture full of beautiful emotions. This is what you're going to be creating. That picture is completely different. This is where the suffering is happening, right? This is where the habit or the addiction is happening. And that picture is completely different, comes from a different space. So awareness and trusting themselves so they can create something different. And then what they want to create, we can explore, you know, they can create very simple things and then go into the habit of constantly changing, slowly changing the habit. It's a long process, as you know. But clearly I call those people warriors, not in terms of fighting against themselves, but the fighting together with themselves on fighting the ego, fighting those habits. So it's like a little bit of war game for some people, especially if there's a suffering long term, and for them there's lots of story involved, lots of other social groups involved in constant push to explain themselves, you know, all these stuff. So slowly putting them little world, little environment, so they start creating the new me, the new habit. It's like a little plant over there. Yeah, that's the way I try to do that. And also in my methodology, because we don't talk much, usually I lead like hypnosis, like a meditation, visualization. It comes to do with the breathing. So breathing is number one what I use. Inhale like breathing in, inspiring yourself, and breathing in that air into yourself like a life force, new bright life force, like a little bubble, like a light, and lighting up that new vision of yourself. So it's to do with the breath work as well, because people, when they do the breathing breath work, they start feeling energy buzzing into the arms, through the body, and they become aware of it, that they haven't been aware of it, that the energy there is. So I said, you are conduct of the energy. Now create the thought and charge it. So it's really empowering, because it touches the senses, not only mind, but the senses of the embodiment. So embodiment. It's pretty fascinating.
I love the way you use metaphor and simile to translate what people are inadvertently doing to themselves into a way that they can see it without it being emotionally threatening to them. I think that's a fantastic approach. Well done. Very impressed.
Thank you. Well, it works. And how about you? How is your way? What are the methods you use to?
Yeah, when I'm taking the case history, which is, as you know, is the starting point for any consultation when you're trying to help someone, I'm taking contemporaneous notes. So I'm writing what the client's saying, and I'm writing down specifically their exact words, and the words I'm looking for are the words where they unknowingly reveal that they are doing something harmful to themselves, but they're not aware of that. And obviously, if you quote people back to themselves in a hostile way, they're just going to shut down. So when we're exploring what it is that they're unknowingly doing to harm themselves, I'll say to them, when we were discussing your problem, you said, and then I'll quote them, and then they hear their own words back to themselves, but they then have an opportunity to think, what's going on here? So I'll ask them, you said this, tell me what you think that means is going on. Tell me what you think that means in terms of your level of engagement in this problem, or your level of responsibility for unknowingly causing some aspects of this problem on yourself. And as long as you're gentle and soft and tactful and diplomatic, most people will get it. Most people will hear their own words and hear, and they'll say words to the effect of, oh my God, am I doing that to myself? And that's not what I've told them. That's what they've realized for themselves. So for me, the important thing in the kinds of work we do is getting the person to see themselves as reality actually is, not as they previously perceived it to be, to see it for its factual base, and then to interpret, reinterpret usually, their problem in such a way that they can then solve it. So in essence, I'm saying that the reason that people come to people like me and you, although they do come to see you for physical reasons, they come to see me for psychological reasons. Yeah. The reason they come is the way they've defined the problem to themselves, the story that they've told themselves has trapped themselves, unknowingly trapped themselves in the problem. And if we can get them to see that, if we can get them to own that and take responsibility for that, they can generally solve their own problems, and they don't need much input from me once they get to that point of, as I call it, self-responsibility. What do you think?
I can hear you and I can understand you very well. And this thought just comes into my heart, in my mind. So in my life, I've always been an explorer of the body language. What if there is a pain and there is something inside of me doesn't feel right? Why is this happening? What is this? And that led me into learning different techniques, into exploring and understanding body's language to do with also with the mind. Very interesting. When I hear you saying, you know, you work with the mind, you work with the story and the projection of themselves. And so whatever they project here, they will project into the body and then the environment. Is that correct? Right? So you're really working with the mind, with the story, with personality, identity, all that stuff. And also you touch the subconscious ways as well. You know, you're subconsciously catching the thing. Okay, did you see that? Did you see that? Where I would say my way, they would start exploring themselves. We talk here a lot, but when I'm with a client, I don't really talk much. When I elaborate on, are you happy? You know, you're aware of this? Okay, good. So let's go. Let's do the breathing. And then we just charging, breathing. And one of those things that body knows what is healing in many, many levels, not only physical. Body knows there is an inner intelligence that knows how to heal, how to navigate, how to regenerate every single cell of the body. But when we stop doing that, and when we stop our body to heal itself by actually creating certain ways of thinking, or so to say, beliefs are the energy blockages. So what I experienced, that charging body with extreme amount of energy, it breaks and reaches those limited beliefs or those subconscious ways, blockages, the energetical blockages. And during the session, they would start crying. They would start releasing an emotion to do with that belief. Because body knows one thing. Let's say, ultimately, the energy that it's always in us, always buzzing, is love, right? It's like on constant changing energy, love. Like what you want to sing, it comes from love, opening your heart. So we visualize that opening the heart is beautiful, but what is really is body going into the most profound way where it come from, regenerative, basic energy where we come from. So it's basically through breathing connects with that energy. It's like charging the channel, connecting to the source. And simply body would break and touches those energy blockages through the breath. And it will show them the actual subconscious for the mind, what belief to that energy blockage is attached to. And they will realize straight away, almost like something from subconscious, oh, that's to do with that. That's correct. So let's say, for example, if they breathe and the arms really start to be painful and they start to be like this, right? Like a little bit paralyzing and the pain. And they would say, oh, it's so painful. It's my arms, my arm. And I would ask, what are you holding on to? What is this? What are you holding on to? And they would say, what am I holding on to? And they straight away know what it is, straight away. And they start, I said, just let go. Let yourself to let go. Forgive, release. It's time to let go. Are you ready to let go? And then sometimes you're not ready to let go because it's too big part of the life. And sometimes they're just so ready to let go because body suffers too much and for such a long time. So, but when they release energy through crying or screaming or whatever, all allowed there, all. I said, just cry, scream. There's a word, there is the energy in terms of the sound. It has a sound of that pain. just release it, let it speak, your body speak out of this. Then the arms start to loosen up and they just become so fluid, and that it just becomes easy and so on. So my answer to your question is just sort of sharing the experience, the recent work that I've done with few people, and it's always the same thing. So I would say never read in the books about these things. It's purely intuitive work. I do believe from core of my heart that some of us, we come and we're given certain methods to learn to basically conduct the spaces for people to transform, to come back to themselves, to come back to the heart, to come back to love. Right? Yeah.
It sounds as though, I was going to say, it sounds as though there are many, many ways to achieve exactly the same outcome. It sounded to me as though what you were talking about there was getting people to the point where they can look at, analyze, understand, and change the disempowering beliefs that are trapping them. And you've obviously developed some techniques here which combine the mind and the body to get them to that point. Whereas the approach I take is it's usually thinking that gets them to that point with very little physical input. I think the big outcome for me in this discussion is there are many, many ways to achieve exactly the same outcome, and maybe no one way is right. Maybe we need to adjust our method to suit each individual and adjust our method to suit our own strengths and capabilities. What do you think?
Very truth, very truth. And now I'll raise the question for you. What do you think, what kind people would come to you for your help? What kind of people? Because in my experience, I have mostly women coming. They're just very much in tune in their body. It's always manifest in the body. They don't know. They hold on to emotions. So most of my people that I see, it's a woman. Obviously, there are men as well. But what did you notice? What type of people come to you to explore the possibility for help?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Some therapists attract certain types of clients, and my clients are equally balanced. You know, roughly 50% male, roughly 50% female. Roughly, I mean, obviously, I can't give you a precise figure on that. But I think because when they do their homework and they're looking for a suitable therapist, clients knowingly or unknowingly choose a therapist that probably matches who they are in terms of personality, in terms of outlook on life. And because I've written so many books, I suspect that I tend to attract clients who are very cerebral, very cognitive, very thought orientated. Yeah, and because that's the case, we very quickly form a rapport. You know, they've chosen somebody who is like them, and as a result, we form a rapport, and I can help them to get to a point of understanding their own problem from a thought perspective, a philosophical perspective, an analytical perspective, and I suspect that resonates with them. But I don't think I'd fully recognize just how important that was until you posed that question, that maybe all therapists unknowingly attract certain types of people that they can help, and equally unknowingly repel other people who simply wouldn't be able to connect with them for various reasons.
That's right. I'm thinking now by listening to you about the communication between the mind, body, soul, spirit, energy. And how it is important to bridge, because what I found from my experience working only with the intuition and the body and expression into the mind, which is integrating with the mind, it sometimes for me would be hard. I wouldn't find a very hard way to be around people who are very in the mind and they cannot see, they still in the mind, and I know I could help them in the mind, but they don't know how to reach the body. And it's usually that the bridge between the mind and the body, actually what are the key bridges would be like from your perspective, because body, it's important, right? And so what would you think that would be, how it's possible to bridge that listening, that communication? What would be the key things to bridging listening of the body? That is a very quite interesting question, but I would always think, you know, without integration, without understanding, you cannot perform in life. You gotta perform in life, also use the mind, because mind creates the material world. Mind reproduces, creates the structure. Body feels and fulfill the structure. So always about the, you know, it's bridging. What do you think, how we could bridge?
I think that is such a huge topic that maybe we should allocate one of our future interviews to exactly that. In fact, just a point for listeners, we've scheduled a large number of future co-interviews of this kind, and hopefully we will record the next one within the next few weeks. Egle?
Yes, I think that is very, very good. So many people know how to be in the mind, some people know how to be in the body, but how to bridge mind and body and soul together so there's a balance. I think it's a brilliant topic for the next time.
All right. That's fantastic. Egle, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing your insights. Really grateful.
Thank you very much, Nigel.
Take care.
God bless you. And yes, have a beautiful day.
You too. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.